This is the video animated version of the Radwa&Radwa podcast, where we aim to communicate scientific research to science enthusiasts. We post 4 versions of each episode, in English and Arabic, and in podcast and YouTube video formats. All the links are in the description below. You will also find our references in the description. We are your hosts, Radwa&Ewaisha
and Radwa Sharaf,
PhDs, pharmacists, and molecular biologists.
In today's episode, we will be discussing natural compounds. This is a follow-up to our episode from last time where we discussed how everything around us is actually a chemical. The first question I have for you, Radwa, is natural inherently better?
That's actually a great question. So many people look for natural products in their food, their household items, cosmetics, and usually these products are marketed with a picture of a flower, a garden, or waterfalls. And this is associated in people's minds with better. Better meaning safer, or has better efficacy, or more sustainable. So I'm going to discuss each one of those 3 points: safety, efficacy, and sustainability. So let's start with safety, because this is one of the major concerns of people when they look for quote-unquote natural products. We talked about this last time, that there is no such thing as something that is free of chemicals. We have chemicals everywhere around us. We're all made of chemicals, and you'll find the link to this video in the description below. So let's take some examples of natural products that are very toxic, such as snake venom or bee venom, for example. Those are 100% natural, but they're very toxic. And those are 2 examples from animal source. There are so many examples from plant sources, such as curare, which is a plant from South America that was traditionally used by tribes as an arrow poison. And they've used it for hunting, so they would coat it on their arrows to poison either enemies in war or for hunting. So those all are examples of very toxic natural items or natural products.
Radwa, what about the safe, quote-unquote, herbal supplements and compounds that are traditionally used as supplements or in medicine?
Yeah, so there are many examples of these herbals that are traditionally used as medicine that have severe side effects. So people usually think of herbals as natural products that don't have any side effects, that they can use safely without any problems. But there are examples that actually contradict this misconception. So kava kava, for example, is a plant used in the Pacific Islands for anxiety. And it has been known that it causes severe liver damage. So it is still in use, but it is known that it can cause severe liver damage. Ephedra is another example. It's a plant that is traditionally used in Central Asia for cold, for fever, but it does have serious side effects, and there has been reports of ephedra-related deaths. And so the FDA in 2004 has banned any products that have ephedrine, because it is known to cause severe side effects and heart problems, and it could even lead to death. It's also important to know that herbals contain dozens and dozens of chemicals, just like our body, just like our cells. We have so many chemicals inside the cell, and so that also applies to a herbal. And so we don't know all of the chemicals that are inside a plant. So when we use a plant or a herbal, we don't really know what each one of the chemicals inside is going to do in our body. But on the other hand, if we use a drug is only one compound that has been well studied. And scientists would not be able to market that drug without proving efficacy and safety of that drug. And it is very well studied. So using a drug that is well studied is much better than using a herbal that contains dozens of chemicals that we don't really know what is in that. So natural in that sense doesn't necessarily mean that it is safer. And what makes a chemical safe or toxic is not really the origin. It's not whether it's natural or synthetic. And in our next episode, we will be talking about what makes a chemical safe or unsafe. And that is not going to be the origin of that compound.
Well, thank you so much. So this was a summary of the safety of natural compounds. The second point you said you wanted to talk about was efficacy. So I remember back from our undergrad days, we used to learn about the willow bark, the willow tree bark, which contains a compound known as salicin, and this compound can be further modified to synthesize aspirin. And I remember salicin, the natural compound, that was less efficacious and less effective than the synthetic derivative aspirin, which was much more efficacious. So is that always the case?
Yeah, so many people think of natural compounds or natural substances that they're more efficacious because they come from nature, and that's not usually the case. One example is ginkgo biloba, which is a plant that was originally used in China. It is commonly used as a dietary supplement for older people to help improve symptoms of dementia, cognitive decline, and so on. There was a study of 3,000 older adults who used ginkgo, and the conclusion of this study was that there was no decrease in cognitive decline in older people who used ginkgo biloba. And I will put the reference of this study in the description below. So if we go back to safety, there's also the possibility of drug interactions with ginkgo biloba. Usually older people take several types of medication at the same time. And so ginkgo biloba could potentially interact with some of these medications. So natural does not necessarily mean more efficacious and does not necessarily mean safer.
What about the third option, sustainability? We sometimes hear that people prefer to use natural compounds because they're more sustainable, they don't create waste, better for the environment. Is that true?
Yeah, usually because these natural products are marketed with the flower or the waterfalls, people think of them as more sustainable, but that's not always the case. And usually that's not even the case. So one example is Indian sandalwood, which is a common ingredient in beauty products. Overharvesting of Indian sandalwood can cause extinction of the plant because the plant takes so many years to grow and mature so that we're able to extract the essential oil from the plant. So using a synthetic alternative can actually be a more sustainable option that helps the environment. Another example is squalene, which is found in shark liver oil. If we keep extracting squalene from the livers of sharks, that can actually lead to the extinction of sharks. And it is commonly used in moisturizers. And so using a synthetic alternative to synthesize squalene is actually better for the sharks, it's better for the environment, and it's more sustainable.
So we've learned today that it's better to avoid generalization. Natural compounds are not necessarily always safer than synthetic compounds. They're not always necessarily more efficacious, and they're not always more sustainable. We have to judge each case and follow the recommendations of our physicians and pharmacists. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast and our YouTube channel. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Feel free to reach out with suggestions for future episodes or leave us a comment directly on our YouTube video. See you next time!